Welcome back to Empowered and Out, the LGBTQ plus career coaching podcast. I'm Jonathan Barbie, podcast host and creator of Empowered and Out coaching program, and I'm here to help you thrive as your authentic self at work and beyond. Every week, we dive into the real stuff, navigating leadership, finding where you truly belong, and showing up authentically, even in spaces that weren't built with us in mind. And I bring on guests who've lived it, like today's guest, to share what it really takes to lead and thrive without leaving parts of yourself at the door. Today on Empowered and Out, I am joined by someone who's truly redefining what leadership looks like. Meet Mary Ellen Murrah, a former legal tech executive who now serves as Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer at Vista Consulting, where she's helping shape the future of law firm operations with big ideas, bold leadership, and an unapologetically relationship-driven style. Outside of work, Mary Ellen is a co-owner of Groundwater Creative, a proud Baltimorean and mom to two teenage sons. She's also a fierce alto in her local queer chorus. Love that, by the way. I'm a tenor
Thank
in
you.
my local chorus, bringing harmony to more than just music. Her journey includes navigating high-level corporate leadership as a queer woman who came out later in life, questioning her place in queer spaces, and finding the importance and the joy of community. Today, we're diving into identity, belonging, and the courage it takes to show up fully as yourself in industries and environments that don't always make it easy. Whether you're job searching, aiming for leadership, or just want a career where you can be yourself, this podcast is for you. So if you're a longtime listener or tuning in for the first time, I'm so glad that you're here. Mary Ellen, welcome to Empowered and Out. I'm so glad that you are here.
Well, thank you so much, Jonathan. I am so excited to be here and really jazzed about this conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, by the way, I had to pipe in about the choir because we just started choir season 3 weeks ago, and I'm very excited. We have
I
some
know.
amazing music, and we have a brand new director. We increased our size by 10 people
Fantastic.
from last season, so I'm very, very excited. And this is my 8th season in the chorus.
Wow, that's fantastic. How do you do your seasons? Do you do them like a
So we
school?
do we do fall and spring. So we start in September, but we're having to bump up our concert. So normally our fall concert is the weekend before Thanksgiving, but we had
Oh,
something else happening that we had to bump it up. And because we have a brand new director and quite a bit of challenging music, we started a little bit earlier. And so it's great. I'm loving it so far. And it's getting used to all the intricacies. You know, every director is different. And I've learned already so much in just 3 weeks. My brain is full. And I will say this, I'm so very thankful for rehearsal tracks
yes.
because
Oh
if
my gosh, yes.
at this point, just listening to what we've done so far, no, I would not survive without those rehearsal tracks at all.
I completely feel you. I feel like the alto part is always sort of the weird part. So I always have to isolate that and then just listen to playlists that are just the alto part. And that I thought that was my secret tip for learning, but apparently you know that secret tip as well.
Oh, I do. Yeah. And we haven't always had the rehearsal tracks. So I'm very thankful. I don't remember what director put them into place, but it's been very, very helpful.
Mhm.
All right. Well, let's get started. Let's talk about why you're here. So, coming out later in life. So, you've talked about coming out later in life while already being in a high level corporate leadership. What was that experience like for you?
Oh gosh, the experience, I mean, the word that comes to mind when you ask that question a little bit is fraught. Um, and I say that just because I was already in this space. I already was leading a group of people who knew me as a certain person. And I'll back up a little bit to say my life path has kind of followed. And for those not watching, those who are just listening, know that I'm putting this in air quotes. This traditional path, right? Where I went to college and then I finished college and I've always been very ambitious. So I started a job and I got married to a man and I had children and I climbed sort of this corporate ladder to get into this high level position and did all of the quote unquote right things that you were supposed to do. But I was not living authentically to who I was. I was living this life. If you've read Michelle Obama's book, The Becoming book by Michelle Obama, she talks about getting all of this positive feedback when she said, I want to be a lawyer. Like adults in her life would say, just give her such positive feedback for that, that it
Mhm.
was like glom onto that. Like, oh, yeah, I get really good feedback from people when I say this. And I feel a little bit like that was how I was. I really sort of sought out this positive feedback and positive reinforcement from important people in my life and even non important people in my life, just adults in my life. Or, you would say that this is the thing you want to do and you're getting married and everybody's just giving you all of this really good feedback behind it. So one day you kind of look around and think, I have all of these things I thought were the right thing to do, and it doesn't feel right. Something feels off. And I know you've talked to a lot of guests on your podcast about this idea of coming out multiple times, but
Mhm.
it's so true, right? Like, so then you're having this internal grappling and sort of what's happening in your life and navigating that with your own self and your own family and your sort of little insular group. But inevitably, that starts bleeding out into the rest of your life. And I've always been the kind of leader who's been pretty open with my team, very relationship driven. I like to get to know the people that I've worked with. I like to be a human and talk about the things that happen outside of work that are not necessarily the niche industry things, but the things that make us human and connect us. And so you can't just say, okay, well, this is the way I've always led when I had this quote unquote traditional path. And now that things look different, I'm just going to clam up and not tell people about my life. That wouldn't be authentic to who I am in that way. So it was this sort of like slow coming out of, well, first it's me and my small insular group, then it's, my family and the sort of edges of that, and then ultimately the people I work with. And those early conversations were weird. I mean, they felt weird. They felt uncomfortable. I wasn't sure how people in my life were going to hear this. I wasn't sure if people that had been important to me in a work environment would still see me the same way they did before. We would still collaborate in the same way that we did before. So I was really scared of some of those conversations. And I also felt the weight of how important some of those conversations were, because I think it is really important to say those things that we're going through. You never know who else in that room or who else that you're touching or is listening to you needs to
Mhm.
hear that thing or needs to, know that somebody else is going through the thing that they are. So you kind of have this weight of responsibility of, no, I need to walk the walk that I say. I need to do the things that I think are important in leadership, even when that's really hard for me. And even when my voice might shake a little bit, or I might feel like I don't know how this relationship or this conversation is going to go. And so that's why I say that we're all of that really long explanation to say that's why I say fraught, because there's just so many pieces
Yeah.
behind it. It's not just a one, let me have this conversation and I'm done. There's so much that you consider before you walk into that room.
So, with both personally and professionally, how did that change the way that you led in the spaces that you felt comfortable in?
I don't necessarily know that it changed the way I led, because I think I was very open before and I think I was very open after. It was just in what I had discovered about myself had changed. But I think over time, what has changed is maybe my bravery or maybe the importance of knowing that being in this position carries weight and people do watch what you do. And so I am a leader everywhere I am, right? I am a leader in front of my children. I am a leader at work. I am a leader in other spaces. And so if I can take those things that I've learned about corporate leadership and how to, have one-on-ones with people and that sort of thing and apply that to my whole life, maybe just the piece of it that I'm more intimately aware of has changed. And so I don't want to show up in spaces where I know there may not be a lot of other queer people, or at least not a lot of other out queer people, and
Mhm.
not talk about who I am, not be very open about this. And I know that that is me. That is my journey. I know that's not the right journey for everybody, and everybody has to navigate what feels right and safe for them. But if I can step into some of that with some bravery and model what that could look like for somebody, that feels really important to me, that feels really like I am doing something that matters, even if it is sometimes a little difficult to do.
You make a excuse you make a good point. I mean, it's important. It's going to be relatable, and it's going to probably help whoever you're speaking with feel more comfortable. That if they're not possibly ready, because let's say they were part of the queer community and they are just like, okay, wow, Mary Ellen said this She's presenting herself this way. This is amazing. Okay, I'm not ready yet to do that. At least I know that I can get hopefully the support she has and how she's presenting herself. And something that I've said, yeah, the coming out story is, oh my goodness, it can be done a million times. But also the authenticity of ourselves is huge, but you have to, and I've said this a few times, I like it and I feel like I need to find a different phrase of it, but it just is what it is. You kind of have to read the room. You have to know your safety aspect of it. And is it going to be safe for me to share this information? Is it going to be safe for me to really be fully out? And I know I've had many guests from literally all over the world that are saying, well, it may be safe in the United States, but it may not be safe over here. And even in the United States, as we know, each
Yep.
state is different, number one, but each company you work with, you
Mhm.
work in, or you work with can be not as safe as you might think it will be. And personally, and I tell this with potential clients, is that you got to do your research and make sure it doesn't need, a few months back or so, we had Pride Month. And there are a lot of companies that they, as we call it, rainbow washed their
Yep.
websites, their social media to make it look like they're supportive of the LGBTQ plus community, when in turn they are for that month. They're not
Absolutely.
so much the rest of the year. And if you're wanting to be your authentic self at work, if they're rainbow washing, I hate to say this, they're probably not where you want to be.
Yep.
Even if they might be the best company on the planet, if you're not going to be able to be your authentic self, you're not going to strive in your job, because most of the time, if you're having to put up some type of mask, and you're just not going to be at the best, most efficient worker in that space.
Well, and I
So,
think you bring up such a good point too, because I think we'll probably get into this in a bit, but I've shared with you that I sometimes feel like in queer spaces, my voice is not as important because I did come out later in life. And so I didn't
mhm,
have to go through that journey. But I think what that has given me in some ways is kind of seeing it through both lenses, right? Because before I came out and when I was in this position, I didn't necessarily realize all of the gymnastics that people are doing. I mean, it is
yeah,
exhausting to be like, I've had to do all of this research. I've had to go into this space and sort of scan and see if I'm safe in this space. I've had to make a decision in this conversation when somebody asks about my family. Do I truly share about my family? Is this a safe person for me to be sharing this with? Even down to like where my wife and I travel on vacation. And, people that you work with will say, you guys should, we went to this resort in Jamaica, you guys should go. Not even realizing that, like, you know what, that's probably not a safe place for my wife and I to go. And there's so much more that goes into us having to plan a trip or do
mhm,
whatever. And now that I'm on the other side of that, you realize how exhausting that is, how exhausting it is to constantly be code switching and deciding if this thing is safe. Whereas before, I didn't even realize before you even walk into the table, people are having to go through all of this. And now I'm going through all of that.
mhm,
And so I have a lot more empathy for the other people in the room, maybe not people in the queer community, but whatever it is they're going through, whatever thing that they're having to scan around to see their safety. If it's people that are, in a minority in any way, that are coming in to determine their safety. That is freaking exhausting. And that is really hard to put my full self into, let me help this law firm with their operations when I'm freaking exhausted just from having a meeting. You do have to have some grace, especially right now with what's going on in the world. There's so much scary things happening in the world for the queer community and many other
yeah,
communities. And I mean, you cannot completely extricate who you are. You don't just become a different person when you walk into a room or start a work phone call. You are still bringing yourself, as you know, and as all the guests who have been on the podcast know, but it can be exhausting. And I think for people who listen to this podcast who are not part of that community, realizing like having a little bit of grace and realizing that people are dealing with a lot right now. So maybe being gentle on your team, being gentle with those people you work with, while it is always important, it is so important right now.
well, and I'm thankful even now, where 10, 15 years ago, you couldn't look, there was no resource for you to possibly look online that would say a safe space to go to travel to. And where now, yes, because of everything going, especially with everything going on right now, and unfortunately, it's not just the United States, it's happening worldwide, you do need to be very careful. But with that, also, like you said, yeah, be aware of your team, your people you're working with. It is a lot of work. Oh my
Mhm.
goodness. It is a lot of work. I don't miss those days at all. But I feel for the people going through it, and I understand. It's just have a little bit more empathy and compassion for, and because when you do, they're going to respect you even more as a leader,
Absolutely.
because you are showing. There's definitely ways to fake empathy. I definitely had people I've worked with over the years like that were like that. But when you're really showing your true self and being that empathetic or compassionate towards whatever situations might happen or occur, you're going to be looked upon in a much better light than if you are not.
Absolutely.
So
I mean,
let's
you
talk
create that.
about, yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, trust is huge. So let's talk about navigating leadership as a queer woman. So
Mhm.
you've been in industries that can feel stiff or even closed off. How have you navigated those spaces while staying true to yourself?
Yeah, I think that over time I've gotten much better at that just because you get a little bit more practice, right? But yes, I was in a legal tech space, which is very male dominated. Work with personal injury attorneys and personal injury law firms now, which can be, a stiff kind of buttoned up. Not every firm, but some firms are still pretty stiff and buttoned up. And the legal industry in general tends to be a little bit behind other industries when it comes to being a little more relaxed. So oftentimes, the events, the rooms that we're walking into can feel like a really intimidating space. I am walking into a room with largely and this is obviously changing too, but largely male dominated rooms with big personalities. So it can be intimidating. And I feel like I've kind of baby stepped into it, if I'm being honest with you, in a leadership way, because there have been plenty of early conferences that I went to or firms that I visited where I said absolutely nothing about my home life. I did not really share about who I was, or I did so in, my spouse or language like that, where I really wasn't sharing who I was.
Mhm.
And at some point, I don't know if it was this flip that switched in me or I had done it enough times where it just didn't feel good anymore to do that. And so I just started talking about my family or kind of throwing things in when I did a presentation. I would say things like my wife or talk about the course that I'm in or whatever. Just drop a little nugget that was germane to whatever I was talking about, but kind of said who I was. And I was just sort of doing that, I guess, by instinct, that was a thing that felt right to me at the time. I also had the support of my wife, who I have to give a shout out to for if you need somebody in your corner to let, you know, if you imagine that we're in like a boxing ring, she is the person like squeezing my shoulder and putting the water in my mouth, like wherever I go to say, like, you got this. And I feel like she is the true definition of a partner, of somebody who supports me when I walk into those spaces. So a lot of times it's a phone call to my wife to say, I need a hype person right now, hype me up. I'm about to walk into this thing. And she does a great job of, you deserve to be in this room. You have been doing this for X number of years. You are whatever. So that I kind of walk into this with this like a little bit of puffed up confidence because somebody has helped give that to me. And the more over time that she's helped give that to me, the more it's just sort of lives in me, I guess. But I had a situation where I was giving a presentation. I don't even remember what I said. I talked about my wife, or I talked about something as a passing comment in the presentation. And somebody came up to me afterwards in the hallway, a young woman who said, I've never been at a legal conference where a woman talked about their wife and she was gay. She was giving me an unexpected compliment that I don't even know that I realized I had said it. And then that was the thing that was like, no, these are the people who need to hear this. In every room, I
Uh-huh.
guarantee you there is someone who needs to hear this, who needs to have this be normalized. And I hate to say this, but I do present very feminine. And so I tend to be a safe space for people, like people who didn't know I was gay, they will come up to me and literally say, I didn't know you were gay, and then kind of be interested. And I know that can also be a way because it's not my job to educate everybody in the world. But
Right.
in those spaces where we don't get a whole lot of that, sometimes it's almost nice to me to be that person. Like if I can be the person that talks to somebody that would like, okay, people in the queer community are everyday people. We deal with the same issues that you do. We care about our families the same way you do. If it makes it a little more safer and more normalized, then hopefully that keeps happening over time. And then it doesn't have to be this big deal to talk about your wife when you're on stage because it just is.
I agree. And I think that one of the things that I love that I've been able to do with the amount of guests that I've had on my podcast is showing the different types of roles that people are in that shows, hey, we are normal. We do these types of roles, and they very well could be someone in your company that has that same type of role. Also, that, hey, you might actually be able to be in that position one day if you
So,
really, strive to be in that type of leadership position. Because not everyone wants to be, and I get that. I 100% understand. And it is a lot of pressure on you when you get into a leadership role because you are in some ways representing the community because of where you are in your role. But when you come across, and we have so many people that show their individuality and they
mhm,
share it in possibly hair color, makeup, whatever, clothing, whatever that might be. I mean,
mhm,
I'm pretty much like you. That's just not my thing. It never really has been. I think the most that I've done is, and they're still pierced, but I used to wear earrings a lot and and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't care either way. I think that I don't know, to me, whenever I would go into a certain space, it just made me feel more comfortable.
mhm.
But I feel that if you can present yourself, and especially if you're in a space where there might be some hesitation, it's going to be a little bit more relatable. And
Mhm.
I'm sure, have there been moments where you had to decide between blending in and speaking up? And how did you make that choice?
Well, there's for sure been moments where I've had to make that decision, and I don't even know that it was as conscious a decision to say, like, "This is the thing that made me decide this." I mean, obviously, like you said earlier, when you walk into a space, you're sort of scanning around. I remember being at a legal conference, and there was a woman who was wearing a necklace that had a rainbow charm on it, and it was I mean, she was, like, 15 feet away from me, and I clocked that rainbow charm, like, so far away to be like, boom, 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 looking around this room, I found her, and of course, as soon as I started talking with her, we became fast friends and her son was part of the queer community. And you are constantly doing things like that to sort of determine the safety of the environment. And I have been in conversations where I've made the choice not to because of something somebody else said that made me question how they would take this. And there's been some times when I didn't say something and I kicked myself later and said, you know what, that I should have said something. I wish I had said something. I wish I had been brave enough in that moment to say the thing. Again, over time, I think I have kind of gotten that bravery. And the more you do, it's like any other skill, the more you do it, the more you are comfortable with it and the more you
Mm.
sort of lose that fear of walking into it. And I kind of remember a moment of going into a networking event where I sort of said to myself, I'm going into this event and whatever happens, I'm not doing the weird, like not talking about my family or whatever. I'm just going to go in here and be myself. I am walking in this room and however this room takes me is how this room takes
Mm.
me because I'm done with it. I'm tired and I'm not doing it. And it was one of the best freaking networking events I have ever been to. I had so many good conversations. I still am connected with some people on LinkedIn that have kind of developed a friendship from that. And I think it is because when somebody walks in with all of the things behind them that they are,
Uh-huh.
there is a light inside of them that whether you recognize it or not, it changes who you are. When you can truly make the decision to say, I don't really give a crap. I'm going to walk in here and be who I am. It kind of lights you up inside. And I think that does come across. And maybe I was a better networker because I had made that decision and wasn't going to,
Yeah.
silence myself or whatever. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but maybe I like to think that.
So, belonging in queer spaces, you've shared that sometimes you feel like your voice doesn't fully belong. Can you talk about that?
Yes. And I know that this is a hang up that I have. And a lot of other people in the queer community have wrapped their arms around me to tell me I do not need to feel this way. But I think because I came out later in life, I was in my mid 30s by the time I came out. I feel like I didn't have to go through all of the difficulties that queer kids have to go through. The navigating their friend spaces, the coming out to their parents, the time that there's so much happening in your life and this is such a big piece of it. I didn't go through that. I got to kind of sail through, and maybe the side of that is I didn't sail through it because I wasn't being true to who I was, but it feels like I sailed through it. I didn't have to do those things or have those hard conversations at a time when I didn't know how to have those hard conversations. I got the luxury of waiting until I was older and a lot more sure of myself and a lot more able to say, hey, if this person who I thought was important in my life doesn't accept me, that's okay. I was mature enough and old enough to be able to do that. And I juxtapose that with my wife's coming out story, and that's her story to tell, but she had so much more difficulty growing up as a queer person in sort of the rural South, things I never had to deal with and never, I hope, will have to deal with. And so when I juxtapose those two things, I'm like, man, I had it so easy. But, on the flip side of that, did I? Is it easy to live a life where you're doing the things that you're supposed to do and what other people tell you is right? No, it's just a different kind of hard. But I've struggled for a long time we talked about the chorus and one of our first social events with the chorus, everybody was kind of sitting around, going around the circle, sort of telling their coming out story. And I was
Oh,
panicking. I was
wow.
sitting there like, I don't let everybody else go first because their stories are so much more important than mine. And like, I don't belong in this space. And I know that is an internal hang up, but I think it's probably one that other people who came out later in life may have as well, where it just feels like the other voices who've had to deal with this at such a pivotal time in their life, I feel like they're the ones who we need to give the microphone to. I feel like the trans community who is just absolutely going through it, they need to be the people with the microphone. So sometimes I feel like, hey, this white woman with a ton of privilege in a leadership position with a great family, like, why is my voice the one that should be out there when there are people that I feel like should have that microphone above me? And I think that's where a lot of that comes from.
And I understand that. I do, and I think it's really interesting because a lot of my guests that I've been having on who have been previous and are coming after this, it's really interesting how many people that have had older, like, later in life coming out stories. It's very interesting. And to me, I feel like when I came out in my mid-20s, that was late as well. Because looking now, in a way, I'm a little jealous of these teenagers, like, they're coming out so quickly and they're so comfortable in their skin and everything. And it's like, wow, wait, we led that way so you could do this. So it's like, all right, I get it. But I think sometimes these younger communities are going to have to realize, these younger generations are going to have to realize you're going to need to know when to reel it in a little bit as well. Because as we know, like you spoke earlier, like certain industries, like you're just not going to be able to be out and proud every single day of a work environment. It's just as much as it is, I feel that it shouldn't matter at all. 100% should not matter what identify as or what your orientation is or who your partner is. That shouldn't matter at all. Because if when you're doing the job and you're a great, effective employee, it shouldn't matter what your sexual orientation is at all. Because why does it matter? What does that have to do at all with what you do in your daily life at a
Mhm.
job? So, what advice would you give to others who might feel that they're not queer enough or even if who are still just trying to find, where they fit in?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm even the right person to give that advice because I am still, I feel like having some internal, grappling with it, I guess. But, I think if I'm stepping outside of myself and my own hangups and that sort of thing, what I have experienced in every single queer space that I have been in is just nothing but love and acceptance. And it is the queer community that has told me, oh my gosh, no, your story matters just as much as everybody else's story. Like everybody's journey is different. And I think, the more that we hear that and the more that other people hear, like you said, you're having guests on. I think there are a lot of people that are coming out later in life that probably are feeling that same way. And I guess if I could talk to them, stepping outside of my own body and leaving all of those, traumas at the door, you do belong. You do belong. And you will, I guarantee you, based on my experience, you will be welcomed with open arms. That hang up is likely in your own mind, not in the queer community. We all have different stories. of coming out. We all have different stories of coming to terms with who we are, not just about our queerness, but about everything in our
Right.
life. And so all of those voices I think are important. And that's why the flag is a big old rainbow because there's differences in all of us.
I love
I don't know if
that.
that was the
Yeah.
best advice, but I'll try to take my own advice there.
Well, no, I agree with you. It can be hard and it can be questioning, but you're right. I mean, every queer space that I've been in, I mean, even the chorus we talked about, the chorus I'm in is an LGBTQ plus chorus. So we're a part of a larger choral organization called the Gay and Lesbian Association of Choruses, which is worldwide. It's not even just US, it's worldwide. But I love that this season, we have our very first trans representation in the chorus. Our chorus has been around. This is our 19th season. So the fact that it took 18, 19 years to finally get that representation, first off, is amazing. I love it. I love seeing it because I hadn't seen it before and not in our chorus. I've seen it in other choruses, but it's something very cool. But yeah, you have to, I mean, I kind of cringe a little bit on, not queer enough. What really is that definition though?
Mhm.
Because like you said earlier, like if a little backstory, when I was a server in a restaurant many years ago, and there were three of us. There were three gay men that worked in the restaurant. Two were very flamboyant, openly gay. I mean, but I had one person that came up to me who was a cisgender straight male, and he said, "Wait, you can't be gay. They like you don't do." And I said, "Why can't I be gay?" He's like, "Because you're not like them." I said, "Okay, and?"
Mhm.
Well, but I said, "What? Because I don't do drag like they do. I'm not flamboyant like they do. You're stereotyping us." Like,
Mhm.
no, no, no. Stay away from that because we're all different. We're all unique. Every single letter of the LGBTQ plus community, everyone is so different. Guess what? Everyone else who is part of the cisgender like community, they're the same way. Everyone's different.
Yep.
So stereotyping even something as not queer enough. Sorry, I'm doing air quotes. Those who are listening, I've done it now multiple times. I just realized that. So for those who are watching, you just saw me do that. But yeah, I feel that just be who you are. I
Mhm.
think too many times, especially when I was coming out and I was hitting up the gay bars, I felt like I had to fit in a very specific way. And look, it didn't last very long. I joked with someone the other day that I was recording with, and I said, I was trying to be someone, and now looking back, I am so glad I'm not that person. I'm so glad that I'm not, and I had those great experiences. I'm very thankful for those experiences to put me where I am today. But stop trying to be like someone in the community. You need to be yourself.
And maybe that's a part of the journey too of I'm kind of
Yeah,
trying this on and trying on the thing that feels right to me and maybe putting a little bit of a costume on until I feel comfortable enough to not be in that costume. I totally get that. And I see other people maybe doing that as well. And you think about like even not part of the queer community, but as you go through your teenage years and you kind of try on different things and different styles and different ways of dressing and what I grew up I was in high school in the early 90s, and I feel like so you're trying this grunge thing, you're trying this, and it's all just this way to really find out who you are inside. And sometimes it does take that putting on a costume to feel like, all right, this isn't me, and get that maturity to be on the other side of it.
for sure. And it's funny because looking back, like when I was in high school, I was in choir, I did musicals, and I was an athlete. Well, those shouldn't have been even intertwined.
Right?
Like, the way that we were brought up, that shouldn't have, I mean, it was kind of almost like, "Wait, how can you do this? How can you be together?" And yet, if anything, it made it more fun to be able to
Mm,
see, "Oh, we have a football player, we have" I don't know. Well, I was a swimmer, so, like, and then all of a sudden, boom, I'm in choir, but cool, I'm in the musical as well, and I got to do this. Well, if you have the talents, why not show it? And
exactly. So you are.
that's, I've been doing choir since I was, what, 8 years old? And I had a definite break at one point, but I did choir in elementary school, middle school, high school, college, and then now, and it's just completely different types of choruses all the way throughout. But in the end, obviously I clearly love to sing, or I wouldn't still be doing it this many years later. But it's because it's a safe space.
Mhm.
And queer or not, everybody is there to sing.
Uh-huh.
Everyone wants to sing. Everyone, because it brings them joy, it brings them peace, it brings them comfort. And as you know, being in a queer course, we most of the time we also have a message in our music. So there's a reason that we're singing the pieces that we sing to the audiences, because there's a reason that we need to sing this. There's a reason.
Absolutely.
And that goes across the board for all the different courses, LGBTQ plus queer or not. There's always tends to be a message. At least there should be. If your director's good, there's a message.
I totally agree. And I feel like the chorus has been a space for me that has been incredibly important. That was the first space for me that was a dedicated queer space where I knew walking into this that it was a safe space and that I was going to meet new people who were part of the community, which was important to me.
Mhm.
And it was, like you said, it was a place of joy. And I think that's really important too, of having queer spaces where yeah, there is so much happening right now that is not joyful, and there is so much activism that needs to happen. And so we can get bogged down in this like everything is bad, everything is bad. But having a space where there is queer joy is really incredible. And it's been one of the most welcoming and just arms wrapped around you kind of feeling that I hope that for everyone. I hope that everyone can find a space like that where they can walk in and feel like it doesn't matter what I'm wearing, what my hair looks like, how I present, what is going on in my life. This is a space where I can come together with other people and feel joyful and just be myself. And that's really important.
So, as we've been talking about importance of queer spaces, oh, how funny. Just flowing right
I
in.
dive right into it.
And we just talked about this, obviously being in the part of a community space like your chorus. Why do you think it is important for queer people, especially those in leadership, to stay connected in these types of spaces?
Well, I am one person with my one journey, right? And yes, I have my wife and I see her journey. But I think it's really important, just like if I'm at work, I need to get to know my team, right? In order for me to be the best leader that I can be, in order for me to be a human first, I have to get to know my team. I have to know what's going on with not just their projects, but their life. And I feel like that is what Chorus has brought to me in the queer space, where it's I get to know all of these people. I get to hear all these stories that are things I've never dealt with, are things that I didn't know about. I've been introduced to so many cool things from this group of people and the conversations that we have during breaks and afterwards and at social events. I've gotten to know their families. So it has expanded my network of people that feel like good, safe people in my life that I know if I needed something, I could reach out to them. And it's also given me the empathy and the understanding of people in queer spaces that are dealing with things that I will never have to deal with, that are dealing
Mhm.
with things that I didn't even know were things people had to deal with, and doing so in a way that frames it where we're doing something that is joyful, but this is a safe space for us to come together and talk about things that are also going on in our life and also difficult. And if somebody is listening to this podcast and does not have a space like that, I would highly encourage you to seek out whether it's, a sports team that's near you, or if you like to sing a chorus, or whatever you can find that is, or even if it's just getting together with other friends of yours and having that time where you're breaking bread together and having those conversations. I think it makes you a better person. And it just surrounds you with, like I said, that feeling of having people's arms wrapped around you. And right now it can feel so isolating. That is so important to have. It's just such a relief in my life to have this group of people. I've made friends that it's hard to make friends as an adult, right? Like, how do you make friends as an adult?
Yeah, it's
And then
much
here you
easier.
are,
It's so much easier as a kid. And
right?
then, yeah, as an adult, it's like, gosh, yeah.
Right. Like, how do I walk up? What's your favorite color, John? And they're like, no, that's crazy. I feel like you need the the space in your life to have those conversations with people, and this creates the opportunity for that to happen. And it just I think anytime that we meet other people, our own internal world is expanded, and having your own internal world expanded is what makes us good leaders. Being a good leader is being somebody that can understand I don't know everything, and so I need to hear from other voices. I need to have other people in my life that tell me things that I could be doing better, that they're grappling with that I didn't know about. And that's not just chorus, but chorus has given me that.
Yeah, no, I would agree. As my time in the chorus has helped me, even my first year was my first year in the chorus, we went on a road trip. We went to sing with another chorus in another state. They had invited us to collaborate with them on their concert. And there was a bunch of us that had just joined the chorus. And I have to say, those are probably some of my closest friends in the chorus because we spent time because the chorus we sang with is very large. There are over
Mhm.
200 people in their
Oh,
chorus. And so our measly little group of like 30, we
wow.
were like a blip in, that chorus. And so of course we kind of all bonded and stayed together because we were a little afraid to expand because some of the people in our chorus knew that chorus. And so they were all hanging out with the people that they knew. And then for us, it didn't. We were like, okay, well, we're going to hang out with these people because we know them. And it's how I got to know, many of the members. And then even now, like you said, like through social events that we do before rehearsal, during break, after, we've had some amazing conversations and times to get to know each other and learned, even though they are part of the community, to hear the struggles that they go through in their work environments. And it's been very eye-opening, but also I have to control myself because of doing this podcast. It's hard for me not to go, oh my gosh, you need to come onto my podcast. You need to, like, I want to talk to you because for instance, I have someone in our course that she is a veterinarian and she does like emergency vet type work. And it's very obviously specialized. She decided to color her hair purple. And
Mhm.
so she stands out. And she told us this a few weeks back that she's had very interesting conversations with clients that come in that have an issue with their pet, whatever it might be. And they initially kind of look at her because of her purple hair. But in the end, they realize, oh, wait, she actually knows her stuff. She's a
Mhm.
leader in this vet clinic where she's working. So maybe we can listen to her.
Mhm.
Maybe she does actually know what she's talking about.
Mhm.
And I'm in awe. I had the opportunity after last season, we had a dinner with a bunch of different course members, and I got to know a little bit more even about her wife because her wife joined us. And it was like, this is, like you said, this is great. We get to meet people, not just the chorus members, but other people. And you get to hear about their lives. You get to hear what they did, what they don't like, what they do like. And it's a great way to become friends with people, as well as, I will admit, when she first started the chorus, I was like, oh, she's a soprano. Do I really need to talk with soprano? And then now I've learned, who cares? Let's meet
Mhm.
everyone. Now it's going to take me a second to learn. We have now 13 basses and baritones. We had, I think, 5 or 6 before. Like, we've massively grown.
Yeah.
So, like our director said the other day, he's going to make a point to try to have individual conversations with everyone because, number one, he wants to get to learn everyone. Yeah, we have
Mhm.
name tags. He goes, but
Mhm.
that's great. He goes, but I want to actually get to know you outside of that name tag. Now, I
Mhm.
had the opportunity to go to dinner with him prior to the season starting because my partner knows him. And I've gone to some other activities that he has led. And so have already kind of gotten to know him a little bit with he and his husband and how their life is outside of, any type of musical type of
Mhm.
environment. And I think that putting yourself in those spaces is very big. It's very huge. It's a good way, like you said, to become friends with people, but also getting to know what other people do. Let's say you're, for instance, looking for a different type of role and you don't know what you want to do. And you get to talk to, oh, here's Susie over here, or here's Joey over here, and they're doing all these kind of interesting jobs. Maybe I should look into that. I had kind of a little experience in this field, and then you should come to me because I'm a career coach and I can help you really get where narrow it all down.
No, that's
Anyway, yeah, I mean,
interesting. When I first started the chorus that I am in, I signed it. I started with the inaugural group. So the director was just putting it together and put
oh,
out
very
a
small.
call for people to join the chorus. So I responded to that call. And then it was, hey, let's jump on a Zoom meeting to meet each other prior. And I remember thinking, like, I am so busy. And like, do I have to jump on this? Like, can I just come to this thing? And that would, in hindsight, that was such the right thing to do for multiple reasons. Because on that Zoom, he was also determining, is this person safe? Is this person somebody that I would feel comfortable being in this room with other people? So that was really important. And it also was good leadership because we had a really good conversation and we talked to each other. when we came in for the first day, each one of us who was in that room already had a connection with the director because he had taken that time to get to know each of us and make feel a little bit of trust in that. And he
Mhm.
also set the stage at the beginning. We have our sort of bylaws, rules, things that he reads before every new session that talks about what the purpose of this, what the mission of this chorus is, and sort of what it means to be a safe space, how we talk to each other, what won't be tolerated, what will be tolerated, those sorts of things. And I feel like setting those ground rules so clearly from moment one, having us all go around the room and say what our names and pronouns are and wear the name tags that say names and pronouns. It really, that's, I didn't think about that when you asked the question about leadership, but that does give me ideas for how to be a good leader too. Here's how you set the tone. Here's how you make sure this meeting is safe. Here's how you sort of put together the rules that everybody agrees upon, those honor codes that we all at work, how we're going to talk to each other. That is good leadership. And that is something that I think he did really, really well and that I feel fortunate to have witnessed.
Very nice. So I know you and I spoke about this when we chatted prior to doing this recording, setting boundaries with family. So you had mentioned the Christmas Eve dinner story, setting boundaries with family. It can be hard. How did you approach that moment?
Gosh, I don't even know that I went into it. Well, let me back up a little bit and I'll tell the story first. It is that I started dating my now wife. This was after I had been married to a man, had kids, my whole family sort of knew me as this version of Mary Ellen. And I had come out to my parents. I told them about what was going on, but had not really come out wide to the rest of my, family yet. And Christmas Eve is like a huge deal at my parents' house. They do Christmas Eve dinner every year. It's not just Christmas Eve dinner. It's like, everybody and their brother comes and they do it's a whole big thing. And it has been since I was a little girl. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal
Hmm.
that is what we do on Christmas Eve. Right. And so my mom, when I told, all of this is happening and I was going to bring my wife or my date at the time, now wife, my mom said, "That's great. You can bring her, but will you let the rest of the family just tell her that she's somebody that you work with. She's your work friend." And I was just not willing to do that. I felt like this is a time in my life where I am finally stepping into who I am. I am living my authentic self. And I am not going to do it in a way that hides something, especially from those people that I love. I'm just not going to do it.
Hmm.
And I was terrified to tell my mom, "Okay, if that's what it is, I am not going to come to Christmas Eve dinner." And I know that sounds like such a little thing, but in our family, like that's a huge deal to not come to Christmas Eve dinner. And so I didn't go. And I think that's the first time in my adult life and in sort of navigating my own queerness that I have really set that boundary and said, "I love you. I love this person. I love my mom, but that is not right for me. And that is not a thing that I'm going to do." And it was a huge deal and it was a hard thing to do. And I hemmed and hawed about it. And I probably lost some sleep over it. I'm not sure I approached it the best, but I think it was a really important thing to do. And I'm proud of myself for doing it. And I think it was part of my mom's journey too. I mean, this was unexpected for her too. And I think she really worried about how other people in the family were going to, I don't know if she worried about it for herself or worried about it for me, or even if that matters. But she had to go through that journey too of coming to terms with something that had changed for her. And now that I'm on the other side of it, I can recognize that. I was mad about it in the moment. I was frustrated that she would even
Yeah.
ask me to tell this lie or to not do this thing. But now that I'm on the other side of it, I can kind of understand where she was coming from, but I still feel like it was really important to set that boundary, and I'm glad I did it. Going back, I wouldn't change a darn thing about that. I wouldn't have gone to that Christmas Eve dinner because I think that is the thing that says, "No, I this is my life. This is who I am. I want you to be a part of it, and I want you to love and support me, but I'm not going to twist myself to do it in a way that makes you feel comfortable."
Well, and family gatherings like the holidays, like Christmas Eve, I mean, they're big in my family as well. And so I understand that you want to feel, I know that maybe not Christmas Eve. I mean, I do remember when my partner first came to where I used to live before I moved out here to Colorado. And yeah, it was kind of a big deal to all of a sudden be like, okay, here's my partner. And especially now looking at, I mean, that was before I had moved out to Colorado. So he had come to Kansas City where I used to live before. And so it was a big deal to have, okay, here's family. And then Here's some other family friends that had come. So it was a big deal. But I mean, everyone knew, thankfully, at that point. But I do remember one of the holidays that shortly after I had come out that, yeah, no, I didn't go. I didn't go to like Christmas Eve. I want to say, did I go to Christmas Eve? Maybe I didn't go to Christmas. Christmas Eve was kind of a big deal for me because it's actually my birthday. So that
That's
would have
right.
been a weird not showing up for Christmas Eve because that's
Right.
actually my birthday. But it is still, I mean, it's a huge thing. I mean, I remember even as kids, my goodness, the amount of family members and people we had that were showing up for like our for especially during the holidays. It's a big deal. The whole point of like especially Thanksgiving, in my opinion, Thanksgiving, Christmas, at least for how I brought it, it was bringing family together.
Yeah.
It's a time to come together. I always kind of laugh that that was the only time I ever got to see some of my like my aunt and uncle and my cousins.
Cousins. Yep. Yep.
And now it's even more kind of a little crazier because now live in the same state as my aunt and uncle who live probably what 20 minutes away from me. And when do we see each other? Pretty much around the holidays. And it's like,
Right.
what? I'm minutes from you now. Like there's absolutely no reason. We live in the same state. There's absolutely no reason that we shouldn't be seeing more of each other. But
That
anyway,
just how life works, you know?
yeah. So, what has changed for you since that infamous Christmas Eve dinner and how you protect your peace during the holidays or a big family gathering?
Well, I think setting that boundary with my very close immediate family a little bit set the stage that, okay, if this is going to be how things are, then I'm not going to participate in them. So this sounds weird, but it's almost like training the people in your life, like what you will and won't, what
Hmm.
you will and won't do. So I really feel like that was an important line in the sand for me. And my parents have never asked anything like that of me again. I think they know the answer would be no if they'd asked me to hide something like that. But I think more importantly than that, for my parents, seeing that ultimately when I did come out to the rest of my family, it was a beautiful thing. Everybody was, and I know that not everybody is as fortunate to have that in their life, but for me, it was. There's not a single person in my family who made me feel less than, who did not come to my wedding after that. And so I think that was an important lesson too for my parents to see that this fear that you had or this thing that made you want to ask me to do this, it wasn't necessary. And even if it had been necessary, even if there had been somebody in the family who had not treated me in a way that I would have wanted to be treated, that is for me to navigate. That is
Hmm.
for me to navigate and they can decide how they deal with it. But you don't have to police these, gatherings or do something different for me. Let me come and let me navigate these things and how I tell people. So I think being on the other side of that, I'm happy that it happened and I'm happy about sort of what the outcome was. And again, I know that is not the outcome for everybody. I wish it was, but I've been very
Right.
fortunate
Yeah.
in the people in my life who've supported me.
Yeah. No, for sure. Setting the boundaries is huge. And I think that even I had to set even boundaries just when I came out, but let alone when you're throwing in multiple family members, either, immediate or extended. And then all of a sudden, here you are. This is who I am. And for me, it didn't happen initially during the holidays. Yes, that was a big deal. Obviously, I did have the holiday where I had to kind of step back from family when I had a family member who passed away, and then having those conversations, it was ended up having conversations with my cousins and like, okay, so uh, how does this feel? How are you doing? How are things going? And to feel the outpouring of support
Uh-huh.
from extended family members was kind of surreal. I remember even telling my sister, I said, I felt like I had to pinch myself. I was like, am I dreaming this, that this happened? Because the, I kind of joked later, is like, are those family, are they really related? Because I'm getting a massive outpouring where I didn't get from immediate, but I got from extended. I was like,
Mhm.
that's really interesting.
That is fascinating. I love that you had that though, that you had that level of support.
Yeah, it still to this day, it still blows my mind because I was like, okay, sure, all right. Why did my parents not act that way? And yet their brothers, their sisters, or why were they acting that way? I'm like, okay. y'all grew up in the same household, right?
It's wild. And that's why so many queer people, I think, have their chosen family because they don't
Uh-huh.
trust or their own family has shown them that, they're not supportive. And I feel like and that's maybe not to bring us back to the chorus, but maybe again the importance of those spaces like that, or for people who don't have that support in their family, this is a place where you can receive it and have that love and joy and people being excited for you and all the exciting things that are happening in your life and the exciting things you and your partner are doing. If you're not getting it at home, some of those intentionally queer spaces will provide that to you.
For sure. So let's networking in a stiff industry. So networking events in law and legal tech aren't exactly known, as you've spoken about, being warm and inclusive. How have you made those spaces work for you?
Well, fortunately, I am in a leadership position. So I do get a say. I do have a seat at the table. And the company that I work for, Vista Consulting, we do events as well. So, what I'm really excited about and the thing that I feel really proud of is that our events are inclusive. So, we are able to model that behavior for other legal industry spaces where it's, hey, when you come into this event, everyone is welcome to this event. And we are using inclusive language and making an effort to have people on the stage that don't all look exactly the same. It's not just this mantle of, cishet white dudes that always
Yeah.
say the same thing over and over again, that you've got some other voices out there. And so what I can have control over or some not necessarily control, but a voice into,
Mhm.
I do. And in those spaces where I don't, where I'm just walking into a networking event or walking into some other space, the way that I make it safe is just by being a safe person and being as authentic as I can be. Because the more I do that and the more other people in the community do that, hopefully the more this becomes normalized. And it shouldn't be weird to walk into a cocktail party and have me talking about my wife or you talking about your husband or whatever. That should just
Yeah.
be what it is. So, long way of answering what I can control, I can control. And what I can't, I'm just going to be my most authentic self in coming into those spaces and try to find those people that maybe look like they need a little arm around them or a little conversation.
Nice. So, talking about resilience after difficult moments. So, you've experienced some powerful moments of community, like coming together after the election. How do those moments influence the way that you show up?
So I had shared with you the story of, again, coming back to chorus. After the chorus that I know we meet on Wednesday nights, obviously the election this year happened on a Tuesday. And so we were the next day after the election, we were supposed to have a rehearsal. And the director reached out to everybody to say, look, I know nobody is in a space where we feel like coming together and singing and having joy. But please come. Please come. We're not going to worry about, going through our scales or anything like that. We're just going to come and be together. And initially I didn't want to go. I was like, "Oh, I don't feel like driving there. And I feel like I just want to be insular and in my little cave here." But I went and I'm so happy that I went because having that opportunity to feel whatever you were feeling, and the director did an excellent job in setting the stage for if you want to cry, cry. If you want to scream, scream. If you need a hug, hug. Whatever it is that will make you feel good right now. And we did like a little bit of singing, some of the songs that I think were germane to the moment. But it wasn't like we're singing it to get this right. It was we're just
Mhm.
singing this to be together and to experience this moment together, and then to have some time to like have get some water and chat with each other. Being in that space, I think seeing how people can support each other through a difficult time has really impacted me. And I think truly makes me a better leader when you're able to see people in sort of their worst moments and how they show up for each other and support each other. It's so easy to translate that into, hey, when I'm on the phone and one of my team members has had a death in their family or who has had something horrible happen to them, having been in that space to see it is okay to feel your feelings, it is okay to fall apart right now, and giving people the opportunity to do so where they're being given permission.
Mhm.
My gosh, like that was just I don't think I've ever seen it in such a tangible way as I did at chorus that night, and I think it has really made an impact on me and how I show up for other people and how I leave that space even when it feels uncomfortable. Some of the work that we do, we go into law firms and we interview their team members just to, what's your workflow, blah, blah, blah. And it can get really cold and clinical, like tell me how you order medical records, that sort of thing. But it can also get really, hey, if you could wave your magic wand, what would this job look like for you? And it's really moments like that being in this space have changed the way that I approach some of those interviews. Yes, I want to know about what your process is, but I also want to know what it's like to work here. What does it feel like to be a human in this culture? What does it feel like to do your job every day? How do you handle being on the phone with clients who are telling you these horrible stories over and over again? Do you get a break? Do you get time to, feel that and take a break and then come back to it? And so I do think every time we're in those spaces where it might be a little difficult or uncomfortable, or you see somebody kind of falling apart, it just gives you that thing inside your heart that lets you be that safe space for somebody going forward, if that makes sense.
It does. Excuse me, 100%. And I loved your experience with the chorus after the day after the election. My chorus as well. We have rehearsals on Wednesdays. So that day after the election, no, it was rough because we knew the possibility of what was going to come,
Mhm,
especially for in our community. And I think that the thing that bothered me the most is that we just didn't meet as a chorus. And
mhm,
I felt that was a true sign of how, and looking back at it now, a true sign of how actually ineffective our director was as a leader. Because in turn, as much as I like them as a person, that I'm going to be honest, they're not our director anymore. We have a director that is amazing in their leadership and what they're looking for and what they expect of us. And I feel that if we had been in that same position with our current director, we would have met. We would have done exactly what you did and your
mhm.
chorus did. And I think that that shows a true sign of leadership. And even we did a little meet and greet a couple weeks before our course even started rehearsals. And one of our previous members, who just happens to be in town, she messaged me and she even said, I'm a little jealous. I can see the leadership and what's going to be coming with you with the chorus that we've been in, and I'm jealous. Like, I'm really excited to see what's going to come from what his goals are, what his direction, where he wants to go. And I said, I know, it's really, really exciting. It got all of us excited. The amount of conversations that I've had with multiple members outside of just even meeting in chorus, like in our rehearsals, in the rehearsal space, has been really exciting to see because
Mhm.
everyone is so excited. And even our theme for this season is, oh, well, my gosh, what is it? May it be. May it be, right? I don't even remember now. Anyways, it's has a direction that it could have been very, we could have come across and done something very attacking, very negative, and it ended up being, it's very inspiring for
Mhm.
both us and for the chorus. And I'm very, very excited. But so with that being said, and leadership, obviously it's huge to see that. Do you think that these shared experiences that you had in the chorus after that day after, do you feel that that makes us braver in speaking up in professional spaces?
100%. I feel like, again, you get to do this thing in a safe space where you know people are going to wrap you up with love and let you fall apart. And so you have a model for that. You have a model for seeing what that looks like. And so when you go out into the world, you know that that is possible. And there might be a situation where I share something and somebody just wraps me up in a big warm hug of love after hearing that. Now, that may not happen, but I think it does give us the modeling that we need to be able to go into other spaces and be that for other people and show that that is a thing that can happen. And when you see it, when you feel it, when it's so tangible that you're in it and you know it's possible, then you can be that person that helps recreate that, and you see that leadership and then you become that leader in other spaces. So, yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to be in those spaces to give us the courage, the bravery, the modeling to be able to go do it in other ways.
Awesome. All right, we're going to change pace. I'm going to ask you some questions that are a little off the cuff. but
Oh god.
also they're rapid fire. I do this with every guest. I'm sure you've heard my questions with all my previous guests. And so just answer to whatever comes to you first.
Okay.
Uh, as much as I love doing post production and cutting out dead air, I don't actually. So I just asked, just come up with whatever you think of first.
This is a Rorschach test for me. Okay, I'm ready.
All right. So, what's your go-to karaoke song, and do you sing it in your alto range?
Okay, my go-to karaoke song is "Me and Bobby McGee" by Janis Joplin.
Very nice.
Yes, I sing it in my alto range, but I'm kind of in that spot where I can go alto and like a little bit up into soprano, so that song is comfortable for me, and I just really like it. So that is my go-to song.
Awesome. I love that. One leadership lesson that you wish you'd learned sooner.
Oh, gosh, that you do not have to have all of the answers. I think early on in leadership, it was like, well, I have to be in control of all of this and I have to know everything. And I'm going to be seen as not a good leader or weak if I don't know the answer to this thing. And I wish I had known earlier on in my leadership career that absolutely not. As a leader, I do not have to have all of the answers. And it's totally okay to say, you know what? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Or I don't know, but I'm going to find the person who does know. And it's okay to also be modeling that behavior of you don't have to know everything to be good at the thing that you're doing. We are all learning. We are all a work in progress. So I definitely wish I had learned that sooner in my journey.
And you know what I love is that every person that I've had on my podcast that is in a leadership position says the exact same thing. It's okay to not know everything. It's okay to come back and find the answer, to come back. First off, it shows to me personally, and I'm sure to others who are listening and watching, that it is honestly even more impressive to see someone in a leadership role to say, hey, I don't really know exactly every that full answer, let me get back to you, let me
Mhm.
find those details, let me get that information for you, because I'd rather someone in a leadership role not answer off the cuff sometimes, like we're doing here. I think sometimes it's fine for that answer to come real quick if you know the answer, but I feel like
Mhm.
it's actually even more impressive and more strong, and it's a leadership characteristic to say, hey, let me come back, let me get that answer for you, instead of
Yep.
going, yeah, right away, this is what it is. All right, excuse me. Dream guest you'd love to have dinner with, alive or dead?
Okay, does it have to be a real person or can it be a character from a show?
You choose.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll answer it the same way either way. So if I was just answering that with no direction behind it, I would say Leslie Knope from Parks and Rec
Oh
because
my
that
gosh.
is just I
Yes.
feel like that is somebody that I identify with so much in the absolute optimism in the face of no matter what. And I would just love to have a little bit of that rub off on me where it doesn't matter what the situation is, I'm going to look at that silver lining. But because Leslie Knope is not a real person, I will say Amy Poehler so I can maybe channel some of that.
It's funny that you say that because I actually listened to her podcast,
Huh?
and oh my gosh, I feel like she would be the most fun person to sit down and have a
Are you
conversation.
talking about the Good Hang podcast?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love
Yeah.
it. I'm a little behind, and I just listened to last week's episode with Aubrey Plaza, and it
Yeah.
was amazing. I'm now even more impressed with Aubrey Plaza than I had known before. And but yeah, Amy Poehler, oh my gosh, she just seems so down to earth, so much fun. I feel like you could just talk for hours.
Yes.
So yeah, oh my gosh, yeah. Oh, I 100% agree with you. Yeah, Amy Poehler would be amazing.
Love her.
And actually, Leslie Knope would be pretty fun too, her character. So on Parks and Rec. So if Baltimore had to be described in 3 words, what would they be?
Small but mighty, I would say those 3 words, because I feel like Baltimore is not the hugest of big cities, but it's got a lot of charm, a lot of personality, and a lot of fight in it.
I like that. All right. So, Mary Ellen, if someone's listening and wants to take action right after this episode, what's the first thing that you would tell them to do from our conversation today?
Geez. So I think what I would want to say to people listening is that nobody knows you better than you. And while I think that it's really important to have trusted people in your life that you can bounce things off of and talk to and have those deep conversations, ultimately when you are making an important life decision like who to marry, what job to take, all of those things that are big deals in our life. You need to, at the end of the day, sure, take in all of those conversations that you had, but you need to listen to yourself. Don't just go off of the good feedback that you're getting from other people. Like, yeah, it would be really impressive if you did this thing. You need to listen to that voice that's inside of you. We all have it, and it's really easy to push it down and really easy to get dazzled by somebody saying, "Oh, that would be so impressive if you did this," or "I think you should go here next in your career." Nobody knows you better than you. So when you're making those decisions, big, small, medium, whatever, sure, take in those advice of trusted people, but ultimately the person who gets to make that decision is you.
100%. Great advice. So, Mary Ellen, this conversation has been such a powerful reminder that authenticity isn't just about how we show up for ourselves, it's about how we create spaces where others feel safe to do the same. Your stories about navigating leadership, finding belonging, and holding firm boundaries will resonate with so many of our listeners. So I highly recommend if you want to connect with Mary Ellen, find her on LinkedIn. She brings that perfect blend of strategy, soul, and sparkle to everything that she does. And for everyone listening, if today's episode reminded you that you don't have to trade your authenticity for your ambition, I'd love for you to share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And of course, I wouldn't be a podcast host if I didn't say this. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss future episodes. And if you're feeling generous, leave us a review. Find me on social media. You can find me at JMB Coaching LLC on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I was thinking all the platforms. LinkedIn is my full name, Jonathan Barbie. It really helps the show reach more of our community. So until next time, stay empowered, stay out, and keep leading with a kind of authenticity that makes space for every voice, including your own.